Jason Chaffetz, president of the Claremont Institute, Ryan Williams, and Fox News contributor and president of Independent Women's Voice, Tammy Bruce. All right, we've got a lot of time to discuss this big issue, and I want to look at every aspect of it. But right now, Tammy, just in terms of the end of this weekend after a tumultuous few days, where do you think we stand?
I think we're in a very good place. I think that there is, and this is interesting, it's his strength and his weakness. The president's a man of action. Americans actually have not seen that for at least a generation. So even though we expected it, it's still a little bit of a shock, right? We see this as an individual who's moving things along, who's actually genuinely interested in negotiation, who understands compromise is a part of that. This is part of why he was elected. It's been now, we're at this month, the 2 years, right? We're right at the 2 years. It's fascinating to me that some people, though, are very upset that he didn't get everything done he promised within 24 months. Right? This is a seasonal effort. It's multiple presidencies, right?
Yeah.
And this is the man, and I think your opening is perfectly apt in that he's got to set the framework. He's the architect. And then you'll have other people building that building and making it even better. But the choices he makes now are key. And the shock, I think, for Congress and for Americans, the difference that he represents is that he's serious. This isn't a vague conversation within the swamp itself, whether it's like repealing and replacing Obamacare or dealing with immigration reform. It's like a gaslighting of the American public in general. The president is out of that system. He means business, and that is the disruptive aspect. So I think we're in a good position. He has multiple options. It would be a grave mistake to underestimate this man. And yet the Democrats are already doing it.
Yeah, well, that's and unfortunately some Republicans as well, and some on the right.
Many,
that's the thing. And I really hope everyone gets behind it because it could be such a prize. But I think that word architect is so important. I think it's really important he understands that you can't just sort of hand this off to this committee and hope that they'll figure it out. I mean, that is not going to end well. Jason.
I think the president is in a better position now than he was a week ago, even though they want to try to say, oh, Nancy Pelosi scored a lot of points. What Pelosi and Schumer did is they put these self-imposed impediments in the way to actually striking a deal. Oh, we can't walk and chew gum. We can't have a discussion about this while the government's closed. Well, now it's open. We can't have the president go before the American people and make that case at the State of the Union because the government's closed, even though it was this fake thing that Nancy Pelosi came up with about security. Well, guess what? Now it's open. So that's State of the Union.
Right.
I fully expect that the president should be able to make that in the next 7 to 10 days. And the president has the bully pulpit. At the bottom line of this, Donald Trump is fighting for something. He's fighting for the safety and security of the United States of America. He's fighting for the Border Patrol agents who put those men and women who put their lives on the line. I've been out there with them. It's dangerous, and we don't pay them much. Meanwhile, you have Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer doing what? They just hate Trump. And I think that's seeping through to the American people. The president never left town. He's been very tempered in his approach. He's been saying, this is exactly what I want and why we need it as a country. And that will continue to win the day.
Yeah, and of course, the other thing he's fighting for, and this is what, to me, one of the most interesting things of what we've seen that really reveals the swamp in all its dirty, disgusting realities, is an election promise. And one of the most shocking things is when you see Nancy Pelosi, all of them, but especially Nancy Pelosi, part of their talking points that they must literally write down and send around is to say, oh, he's trying to do this just for an election promise, as if that's a criticism. But in their minds, it is, because they are so contemptuous of the voter that actually trying to do your promise is just not in their way of seeing the world. It is so revealing.
Well, I think it was a Fox News poll that showed while people were blaming the president for the shutdown, I think it was upwards of 56% of Americans did not like what Congress was doing in the meantime. There's a reason why Congress has like an 8 to 10 point flexibility in their approval rating, and then they poo-poo the president's 45% approval rating.
Yeah.
He's doing better than they are.
By the way, I just saw a poll just out tonight, actually, that the politicians whose negatives have increased the most during this period is Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah.
And she has now the worst favorable balance of any politician.
Americans want people to work together.
Ryan.
Well, I think, I mean, as you said, this is one of his signature election promises. Three stools, really, of the presidential campaign of Donald Trump, which was trade, immigration, and foreign adventures. So I think he's
them.
Ending, yeah, right. Not more
Yes.
foreign adventuring.
Yes.
And so I think this. I think.
Yeah. By the way, just to stop there, sorry
Sure,
to cut you
no,
off,
sorry.
but that's so interesting in itself because that's the big change, isn't it, from the traditional establishment republicanism to the more populist agenda.
Yeah, and I think it has an analog in Brexit as well. I mean, I think in the United States, you mentioned the swampiness of this whole thing. I think both in the UK and in the United States, you see this as evidence of a good portion of the establishment, right and left, wanting to elect a new people. Rather than help.
Steve,
help
I also really do think what the American people are coming to realize is that Pelosi and Schumer and the Democrats, they used to be for these very things.
Yes.
And the
Oh, my
duplicity
gosh.
is just so stunning.
That's a great conversation to have, though. They were for it when they knew it wouldn't happen.
Yes,
That's
it.
the fraud that has been implemented on the American people. The charade of it all. They said, well, of course, of all these things that never happen, they know it will never happen. And it's this dance. The dance is over, right? We're now here sitting at the table for business.
That's why I think it's so important that actually he takes control, he takes the initiative. You know, and he started doing that last week with that proposal last week. You know, we covered it last Sunday and it was on Saturday from the White House where he said, right, here's my offer. That was great. You know, he had the initiative. I think we need to see a lot more of that. All right.